Hey everyone, we're going live to unpack the most up-to-date immigration news that have been happening because there's so much to unpack. So let's get to it. But before that, Jose,
Yes.
I don't want to ask you about food today. Talk to me about dessert because I'm feeling like a little sweet tooth. So, okay, you have three choices for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Only three desserts.
Okay.
Which are they?
I don't know. Dessert is not a big thing for me. So
My heart.
probably some mango ice cream. Probably a concha. I think that's a dessert for me. And then probably some cheesecake. And yourself?
Okay. I would do tostilocos. I would do gelato. And I would do the little snow cone. Because with a little fishy, with the ice cream, taro, so good.
Yeah.
Anyways, I can go on. But let's get to it, to the first topic. I know that last week, if you saw us here in the video, we were talking about ICE and immigration going outside of the courts, waiting on people to their cases to be dismissed. That happened very predominantly here in Phoenix. Also, we saw it in Seattle, in LA, and across other cities in the United States. Is there an update? What have we known? Anything that you want to give a little recap or an update? Has that been happening this week? Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, after the events last Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, where you have community members and also attorneys and volunteers coming up and showing up, not only here in the Phoenix Immigration Courthouse, but in other parts, like you mentioned, Miami, New York, Los Angeles, Seattle, where predominantly these activities are happening.
Yeah.
There was a slowdown, so that didn't happen last Monday. But today, there was ICE presence at the Phoenix Courthouse. They did the sort of backwards exit, so then people even were out there outside, but they weren't able to see the folks in because they took them through the outside. And in New York, a pastor was arrested as he was trying to figure out what was going on. So as I think things potentially could escalate as ICE continues to basically request the judge to dismiss the charges, so that people think like, oh, wow, I don't have a case no more. I'm okay now. I can proceed from adjustment status of my legal pathway. And what it actually means is no, now ICE can put you in expedited removal because under the expanded understanding of expedited removal, they can now basically remove your due process. And that's tragic because what we're seeing a lot of them is families. You're seeing children get arrested and you're seeing their parents crying, or you're seeing wives and spouses being separated. It's very difficult and it's very tragic. So I don't want us to lose that humanity at all, given all the political context, because at the end of the day, we're dealing with human lives. And I worry what would be the long-term impact that these kids are going to have, that these families are going to have going through this process, and sort of the rug being pulled under you because you thought you actually had relief. You did everything as legally as they would ask you, but it comes out to that because of the administration, how they see immigration, now you're automatically eligible for expedited removal.
Thank you, Jose, for grounding us and reminding us that we're talking about little kids, that we're talking about families, that there's someone's mom, there's someone's dad, there's someone's brother. And it's challenging to see those stories. We're telling people, if you have court or you have a loved one that has a court coming up, please talk to an attorney. That's the best recommendation that we can give you. Both Jose and I are not attorneys, so this is not legal advice. But if we were in your shoes, if we had court, we would want to see an immigration attorney ASAP. So if you need resources, you can go to alientoac.org/resources, and then we can connect you with our trusted attorneys. If money is an issue, there's a couple of attorneys that do either like a sliding scale, or also we have other partners like the Mexican consulate that do provide free consultations. So we definitely will encourage you to seek those resources. If you are someone who's not a U.S. citizen and wants to accompany someone to court, we would also ask you to please get legal advice if you are not a U.S. citizen, because that's also something that we need to be taking precautions, as we have been hearing more stories about due process being broken. So definitely better safe than sorry. So make sure that you do get that support and that legal advice as soon as possible. And again, go to alientoac.org/resources. We'll also put them in the comment area, and then I believe believe that they're on our link as well. But moving into the next segment, Jose, hard pivot, also not great news because it seems everything on immigration is not so great right now. But something that happened with TPS holders, can you walk us a little bit and tell us, I know before you tell us about what TPS and break it down for us, I know that the Supreme Court already had stated that technically the Trump administration has permission to terminate the deportation protections, or TPS, for temporary protected status of close to 350,000 Venezuelans, and there's more coming down the pipeline, and there's rumors that the Trump administration is going to do the same thing with Haitians. But tell us a little bit about these 350,000 Venezuelans that are being impacted. Tell us about what TPS and what does it mean now that they don't have TPS anymore.
Well, TPS, temporary protected status, was created in the 1990s under the Bush administration, the senior one, where they were typically a natural disaster that happened. So if we go back, like think of Haiti in 2010, this earthquake that basically decimated the infrastructure of the country. So the whole purpose of it is temporary. So the whole process was like people who are going through extreme conditions, whether it be humanly made or whether they be
natural
disasters. They would come to the U.S., have some protection status, be able to work, and potentially, if eligible, pursue legal pathways for a certain amount of time. And then the whole purpose of it was then for folks to return back. That was the concept of it. Because of the stability of some of the areas like in El Salvador or even Nicaragua or Honduras, some of those folks have stayed here for 10, 20, 30 years with TPS status. But this is something that the Trump administration wanted to end. Trump won, right? They filed many times, tried to attempt temporary status for different nationalities. Some of them were successful, some of them were not. When the Biden administration came in, they expanded it to include Venezuelans, Haitians, Cameroonians. Ultimately, it's like 600,000 new people that were incorporated under the Biden administration. Part of the Trump administration they want to do is do away with those 600,000, right? So it's part of it is political because, Biden created a program, so I'm going to go against it. But the other piece of it, the larger piece of it, immigration, is that within the Trump administration, they believe in less immigrants as a whole. So even if people have a valid claim, even if people come from a country right now, maybe where the infrastructure is decimated because of natural disasters, they still would want to end that program and send those people back. And so that's what we first see happening right now. The go-ahead was for Venezuelans. Probably other nationalities such as Cubans, Haitians are coming down the pike as we progress in the year.
So again, big solidarity with folks from Venezuela during these moments. As you mentioned on the last segment, right? We can't forget that we're talking about people who are doing everything possible to be right with the law. I know that oftentimes that's always a misconception. Why do people don't do it the right way? Well, TPS is a vehicle, and then now it's being taken away. So imagine you having your children, you having a job, and you just blink, you wake up, and then now it's gone. So definitely it's something that our heart it is with Venezuelans that are being impacted by this, and know that you're not alone, and hopefully you are getting that support systems as you are potentially looking for different ways to remain in the country if you would want to fight that fight.
Yeah, and it's also compounded because now we're having they're losing TPS, right? We're having how ICE is navigating people's court hearings. We're having how the ability to have legal visas, people to come into the country, is being diminished. So as a whole, the U.S. right now, the Trump administration, is going to be more restrictive. So we are going to see less. Well, right now it's basically closed in asylum seekers, right? People coming into the country. Border crossings are an all-time low. We're going to see millions of visas through student visas, work visas that are not going to happen during the Trump administration, as we saw in the previous one. So overall, we're going to have a less amount of migrants or people who are not of native born here in the U.S.
And if you don't really have that humanitarian component, that you just really care about humans, this is also going to impact you as citizens. I mean, it's going to impact the workforce. It's going to impact our nation. So definitely that's something that more to come. If you want to learn more, always drop a comment. Tell us about what topics you would want us to dive a little bit deeper in the future. But I know we're coming up to our last segment and to the last 5 minutes of our live. And I really want to talk about real IDs. I was traveling and there was signs checkpoints everywhere. Do you have your real ID? I know I started getting a lot of messaging from mixed immigration status community, whether it was safe for them to travel.
Yeah.
What do they need in order to get a real ID, in order to travel domestically? So let's break it down first. What is a real ID? Very high level. How can I get it?
Yeah, well, the real ID was created in the sense to create this kind of concept in the U.S. national ID where everybody has, because the way the U.S. works is a very decentralized system where every state kind of creates their own procedures, their own requirements.
Because it's the United States of America,
Yeah,
one
so,
republic.
which allows to have some discrepancies and some issues. So the whole concept is how do we have a national ID basically that meets all these string requirements that it could be used everywhere and allows people to move and travel. So that's the concept behind it. Implementation has been extended. Finally, seems like this is going to be the deadline.
Yes.
You need 2 forms of ID to be able to verify it, right? If you have a passport satisfies two forms of IDs, whether it be your birth certificate, right? When you get a passport, and then you also have your image. So with a passport, you can get a real ID. Also for DACA recipients, the employment authorization document is considered a real ID. So if you have that, you don't really need a real ID anyways.
And that's what I was going to get to. You already went ahead, which is very Patino fashion, going ahead of the curve. I love it. So I've been getting this question. Can DACA recipients get a real ID?
Yeah, they can get a real ID, right? As I mentioned, you can take your employment authorization, aka work permit, or your driver's license state ID, or you can take your state ID or driver's license and your passport, and then you can get a real ID.
And again, you can get it, but if you are a DACA recipient and maybe your work doesn't allow you to go to the MVD or trying to get this process, or you're busy, if you do have your DACA, you can travel with that. You don't need a real ID per se, but if you want to get one, you can get one if you are a DACA recipient. If you are undocumented, you cannot really get a real ID, but if you do have your passport, that's something that you can still travel. As we are kind of getting into the summer and people are maybe making summer plans or vacations, I think it's really critical for us to be thinking about, if you live in a mixed immigration status families, travel has changed. What are some of the considerations, Jose, that folks that live in a mixed immigration status family or have besties who are dreamers or who are undocumented, they should consider as they're making travel arrangements?
Yeah, so we're talking about fully undocumented folks, not DACA recipients. I think that's the key distinction. Again, within 100 miles of international border, which is the majority of the population in the U.S. lives within 100 miles of international border, because if you think of the coast, Border Patrol should be active there. We have seen an increase of Border Patrol and ICE checkpoints in states like, for example, we're in Arizona, but we border California. We've seen a ton in California driving there. So as you travel, and then there's incidents that of a couple weeks where individuals that we know who are undocumented were traveling for vacation to California, got pulled over, and are now in detention because of it. Just know, like, I don't want to, I was undocumented, fully undocumented, and I understand how it feels to be like caged and you really can't travel, you can't move. But that's the reality. Like, if you're going to travel for fun or pleasure or for work,
know the risk.
Know the risk that, hey, you'd be like, oh, I'm not doing anything wrong. They don't care. We have seen it many, many times. I don't know how many examples we have to tell people. Even if you're a U.S. citizen, even if you have a real ID, their eyes, because of the complexion of how you look, how you're dressed, where you're working at, like in working sites, right? And people who have construction, they're going to pull you over and they're going to harass you. There's countless of examples of U.S. citizens getting arrested, even though they have a real ID and they may have their passport or other documentations.
And that doesn't mean that we're saying that every single interaction is going to be like that, because I also hear all the time, right? It's like, well, I pull over and nothing happened to me, and I'm so glad that nothing happened to you, or nothing happened to your comadre or your uncle or your best friend. But we are hearing some cases. So definitely, like, know the precautions, know that there is a risk. And then we believe at Aliento that you you are your own human being and you can make those decisions. But we think that that is our responsibility to let you know what we're hearing, because there has been cases, as Jose, multiple cases. Even there was a highlight in the news that a U.S. citizen was pulled over. He showed his real ID, and then the agency said, no, this is fake. So we're hearing these stories more common nowadays. So I think it's really critical for you to be aware, especially if you do care about your friends, family who are part of a mixed immigration status family. These are things to consider as we're moving forward. But that is our time, Jose. Thank you so much for your passion, for your examples, for really breaking these complicated concepts. If you like this, make sure you share it, you like it, you heart it, and let us know if you have other topics that you want us to cover. If you have questions, you can always put them on the comment. Let's remember, if you're putting sensitive information, just slide in our DMs. But I hope you all have a great day. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Stay cool.